This is Antony Metivier. You're listening to the Magnetic Memory Method podcast from magneticmemorymethod.com. There are few things more frustrating than forgetting a single important detail, especially when you're in the middle of something as important as recalling, a hilarious joke, right? So you've prepared the perfect anecdote. You may have even memorized it. You may have used memory techniques, but you can't retrieve it. You can't get that single most important part of a joke, perhaps, from your memory. You can remember the newspaper or the book where you read it or you heard it from a comedian. You can even remember the look of the page where the information was found or what time you were watching the comedy show. You might have an image in your mind, or you might even remember the color of the guy's socks if they were visible or whatever. And yet in your mind's eye, that one piece of information is painfully out of reach. Well, don't worry, you're not losing your memory. Your inability to remember these little details or parts of a larger story is likely related to the level of concentration you used at the time that you read the passage or saw the comedian or watched the movie or whatever it is. And this is because concentration is so key to memory recall. It all starts with paying attention. But how do you pay attention? Well, you need good concentration, and good concentration is necessary for creating complete memories. Not just parts of memory, but complete memory. And of course, mnemonics plays a huge part of that. Memory techniques, memory tricks, whatever you want to call them. But without the attention to detail, a lack of attention to detail leads to difficulty remembering crucial and important pieces of information, the sequence of information, the episode of information as a whole. So although having excellent concentration may not necessarily lead to better memory, concentration is essential to well-formed and useful recall of information. So in this episode of the Magnetic Memory Method podcast, that's what we're going to talk about. And if you haven't been to magneticmemorymethod.com lately, there's a free video series for you there that will teach you how to build a memory palace, and it will teach you some tricks about how to be more concentrated, how to actually use memory techniques to develop concentration so that you can use your concentration to remember things better. It's a perfect circle. Because we're in a time where there's so much valuable information at our fingertips, but because of the way the technology works, there are also more barriers for our concentration than ever. And it's this beautiful, really, period in history where we have machines that remember everything for us, but at the same time, it's the precise moment in history when memory techniques have never been more popular and never been more used and never more useful. And that's because we don't want the machines to rely on memory for us because there's so much stuff going on. We need our organic, natural memory more than ever. Now, a lot of people have whined and cried and shouted and pounded their fists against mnemonics because they call them artificial ways of remembering things. There could be nothing further from the truth. What could be more natural than using that organic mass of water and brain matter in your head? The thing that came from being born from another human being that ate food that was farmed from the earth, and water that came from the depths of whatever, right? Wherever water comes from, the rain, the oceans, all that stuff. And then you grew into this human being, and your mind absorbed all this language so that your mouth could develop muscle memory to speak, and you create pictures in your head. And if you could create pictures in order to help you remember things, even if you don't see them in your head, the concept of pictures can be super powerful. What could be more natural than that? People who call memory techniques artificial or somehow degrade them because they're artificial, sorry, they just don't get it. There is nothing unnatural or artificial about it at all. The artificial stuff is a book, a pen, ink, computer. That's artificial. Now, I wouldn't demean those things because they are artificial. They are also beautiful. It's all beautiful. Everything that allows us to capture information, to store information, and to retrieve information is the greatest thing on earth. So don't for a second ever get into this binary artificial versus natural memory stuff. Memory is memory, and we, again, have so much valuable information at our fingertips. We really want to harness the power of that And so we want to develop our memory by whatever means possible, and we want to be able to develop the concentration needed to have the attention that's needed to absorb that information. So we are just saturated with notifications as the internet constantly attacks our focus. But thankfully, there is a powerful and scientifically proven, or let's not use the word proven, because proven suggests that the game is over. There's no more need to study something, right? But that's not what science is about. Science is about demonstrating the validity of its claims, right? There's a difference. That's very, very different than proving something. Demonstrating the validity of a claim is very, very different. And luminosity, as we speak right now, in the beginning of 2016, this is the 6th of January, and they have to pay $2 million for lying about scientific research that they said supported the fact that luminosity as a brain game helps develop memory and concentration. Well, I was hoping they would be debunked. I never would have bad wishes that someone would be punished so harshly by the Federal Trade Commission or FTC, but that's you deserve it if you're going to make up stuff that doesn't even exist. And holy moly, some people make mistakes, but the claims that they were making, that there was proof, not even just that there was evidence in support of the claims, but just that it isn't there, they can't produce it. I don't know the whole story. I'm just going on news reports, but nonetheless, that's crazy. And they have to email everyone who subscribes to Luminosity and say that this is what the case is, and make it really super easy for them to close their accounts. And I don't know if they're going to get their money back. Hopefully, because I've thought for a long time, yeah, okay, play this game all that you want, but don't claim that this is going to improve memory or concentration. There's a lot of placebo effect, and a lot of people have said, yeah, this does help me. And you know what? I'm not going to say they're right or wrong, but to claim that there's research supporting this, I doubt it. And I'm working on an app myself. It's almost done. And it's not the most exciting app in the world. It may be something that's really boring for a lot of people. Now, Ross Webb, who I'm working with on it, we have gamified it as much as possible. But at the end of the day, it is based on some scientific demonstrations that will help improve your concentration, or at least I feel very strongly that it will. But it needs to be tested, and it needs to be demonstrated that it will, based on demonstrations that already exist, that it will help you. And so one of the great goals for the app isn't so much to say, hey, this is really going to get you these results, but rather you're going to enter into it what your results were, so that we can track it and see if there really is something there, and then donate that research, donate that data to Alzheimer's research. It might be the Alzheimer's Foundation or something else, but we don't really know the extent to which it's going to work. I just know the research upon which it's based, which is actually memory training or memory redevelopment that has been offered to people who have had brain damage of one kind or another, and it has been shown to progressively help them with their memory. So I thought, if that helps people with brain damage, would it help people who don't have brain damage? I mean, we all have brain damage at some level. We're drinking poisoned water all the time that has been encased in plastic or run through sewage. We are eating food that has been heavily fertilized, and our estrogen levels are going through the roof. So we all have brain damage. There's no doubt about that. So why wouldn't this help us as well? Anyway, I don't want to spill the beans on exactly how that new magnetic memory method app is going to work, but it's very exciting. And I'm sorry when you get it if you find it kind of boring, but sometimes gains are boring, and we don't know yet if it's totally going to work, but it's super exciting to think that it might, and I think it will increase attention span. At the very least, it's worth the try. It's worth the attempt, and you will not hear any exaggerated claims from me. I will, in the app, have links to the research that I'm basing the way the app works on. Some of it is well known. You will probably recognize it. And anyway, I'm just super excited because if nothing else, it's going to be a memory challenge, and it's not going to be, like Simon Says kind of stuff. It's a little bit more interesting, even if it's not all the flash and gas of something like Luminosity, and I really don't mean to slander that company at all. I really think that it's totally possible that it has value and so forth, but man, oh man, you can't just make stuff up with claim that there's research that isn't there. That's just a recipe for disaster, and it's unethical. And so their comeuppance has arrived. Anyway, like I said, there is a powerful and scientifically demonstrated method, not proven, that helps to improve concentration. And I think if you try it, you will find that it helps. And what's more, whether it's scientifically validated or not, it's something that's been practiced for thousands of years, which is not at all a demonstration that it works, but it is interesting. That's a historical fact. And sometimes there's a reason why things are practiced for thousands and thousands of years. And that may be because people are just deluded, or it may be because there's actually an effect. So in this case, we have the meeting of ancient tradition with scientific validation, demonstration of what is probably going on. So this 3,500-year-old technique will probably improve your concentration. And it's all based on the fact that the mind is a powerful thing. That is a fact. I don't think anybody would argue that. Perhaps no other group of minds has demonstrated this more than the experienced Buddhist monks, right? So there are monks that dedicate their lives to following the Buddhist eightfold path to enlightenment. Here on Magnetic Memory Method, previously we had a podcast called the Fivefold Path to Memory Improvement, and that's like a different thing, but I was borrowing from this idea of the eightfold path to enlightenment, and it involves, for the Buddhists, doing good, serving others, and extensive meditation. And I would argue that doing good and serving others is a great way to serve your memory, because you have such positive things to remember. You look back on your life and you say, hey, I did something awesome, or I feel good about what I did, as opposed to things that I didn't do, right? And there's other episodes on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast where we've talked about the power of journaling to increase memory. And if you look at Richard Weissman's 59 seconds, then he has some data there from science that talks about how actually writing down with your hand about things that you have found good in your life, or that you've done well for others and so forth, also it's not so much that it increases your memory in that case, as I recall the study, but that it gives you the sense that you have lived longer, that you have more time, essentially. And so that really comes down to memory, I would think. Anyway, Richard Weissman is an interesting dude. You can criticize him too. I mean, that's the beauty of criticism, or that's the beauty of science, is that everybody's open for criticism. I'm reading a really weird book where they're really taking him and rolling him over the coals for some claims that he's made, some demonstrations and evidence that he's created, and how the experiments are structured and so on. And I find it a bit much, but at the same time, that's the beauty of the scientific method. That's the beauty of research, and everybody should be open to being criticized. That's awesome. And that's enlightenment, right? That's what enlightenment is. Scientific method is one of the most enlightened things in the world. And so in a way, these Buddhists who have spent all these years testing and examining, whether they're right or wrong, they're scientists. There's a scientific edge to looking for enlightenment. And it's said to be the ultimate state of mind. And when enlightened, a meditator finally achieves a complete stillness of the mind and inner peace. Now, I don't really want that for myself. I don't want stillness. I want activeness, but that's a different story. And previous episodes of the Magnetic Memory Method podcast have talked about what I learned from Alan Watts, and how that stillness may not be the most important goal. It may not be the ultimate form of concentration. In any case, although meditation has existed for well over 3,500 years, the scientific community has been studying it in earnest for about 50 years, and that's according to Thomas and Cohen. Nonetheless, research on meditation has demonstrated impressive potential and even stunning feats. So there's one mind-defying example where Buddhist monks have been recorded controlling their body temperatures through a meditative practice that's called Gitamo. I think that's how you pronounce it. And in these controlled scientific tests, the experienced monks were able to sustain or survive or tolerate cold and moist sheets. And that's pretty exciting. And I'm doing what's called the Wim Hof method right now, and I've talked about this before, and taking cold showers and so on. And one of the claims there is that you can actually regulate your temperature with your mind using breathing and so forth. And I have to tell you, I don't know if I can regulate my temperature with my mind, but I can certainly use breathing to stay in a cold shower for a long time and feel rather warm. And then I go out and walk outside in the winter, the way it is right now, and I don't really feel all that bothered by the cold as I recall having done in the past. But in this study, the monks were not taking cold showers. They were wrapped in sheets around their bodies, and then they were dried about an hour after that. And the process was made possible through body heat produced by the monks while they were in this meditative state of gitomo. And so, in other words, they were using their bodies, their minds, to increase the heat of their body, apparently, which would then dry the sheets in an hour. Now, I'm reading this study and I'm thinking, in an hour, probably the sheets would have been dried anyway, but the researchers were measuring the monk's body temperature, which rose by as much as 17 degrees Celsius. So how is this possible? I don't know if anyone quite understands the biological mechanisms behind meditation just yet, or what Wim Hof is teaching with breathing, but study after study demonstrates that meditation has far-reaching benefits. And it's not just about, drying sheets. It's about increasing your concentration and memory. And so meditation is perhaps the only mental exercise that we have that has so much evidence of its ability to improve cognition and focus, and there hasn't been enough done yet for how mnemonics and memory techniques, extended use of memory techniques and so forth, helps improve cognition and focus, although I think things like the World Memory Championships would in a very substantial way give a huge demonstration of how that happens. But you don't have to be a monk or a memory competitor to start using this tool of meditation to better your own mind, your body, and your soul. So it may be a long way to better concentration, but it's a really powerful one. And I certainly meditate almost every day. And as with everything, there's an easy way and a hard way. And real science, and I encourage you to be a scientist of your own concentration. Science doesn't skip over the hard way. It tries to investigate everything, which is totally crazy, right? But it's awesome. So you want to look for links between your meditative practice and cognition, and basically follow what scientists do. So at the University of California, there was a scientist who, and all these citations are on the Magnetic Memory Method website for this podcast. Just search magneticmemorymethod.com and concentration, and it'll come up. So in this particular study, 60 people were recruited, and half were assigned to a meditation retreat to practice mindfulness meditation for an average of 5 hours a day for 3 months. And you have to be committed for that. And the participants in this study were committed, and not only did they volunteer 3 months of their time, but they also paid $5,300 to attend the retreat. So that may have had an effect. I don't know. I wonder why that they added that condition, maybe to increase the seriousness of it and temper the placebo effect. I don't know, but that was for me, that's kind of a weird part of the study. But nonetheless, there were 30 other people who were used as a control group, and they were placed on a wait list. And this was to rule out that the passage of time alone was not to blame for any differences between the groups. So both groups were asked to watch a series of lines that flash on a screen, and participants needed to click a mouse when they saw a line that was shorter than the other lines. And this is a detail-oriented test, and it forced participants to focus intently, or that's the ideal. And researchers found that those who meditated were significantly more likely to see increasingly small differences in the lines, like really small differences in the lines. So in other words, the meditation group were better able to focus in on small details through their improved concentration. That's what the research seems to demonstrate, and does demonstrate without necessarily proving it, because more research can always be done, but there's some strong indications here. Now, not everyone has the time to undergo a 3-month meditation retreat, so is there a shortcut here for the majority of us who want the benefits without the commitment and don't want to pay $5,300, you know? And guess what? Science has a solution. There is an easier way to better concentration, and you got to try it for yourself. Again, be your own scientist, but the benefits to cognition that's been observed for long-term meditation has made researchers very curious, and they wanted to see whether this effort could be effective in shorter periods of time. So someone named Zaidan, in a study conducted at the University of North Carolina, took a group of 49 students who volunteered for a meditation study. I believe this was Zaidan. Got to check that out. But none of them had prior experience meditating. So 24 participants were randomly assigned to meditation, while 25 were assigned to listening to an audiobook. And audiobooks are awesome, so no pain there. But each group performed their activity for 20 minutes, 4 times a week, for 1 week under laboratory supervision. And at the end of the 1-week experiment, the meditation group experienced significant improvements in the concentration compared to their audiobook counterparts. And now that I'm going through my memory here, it was Zaidan, so you can get the full citation for that on magneticmemorymethod.com. Anyway, it's important to note that this research has a few limitations, and every test and study does, and I've been trying to point out some weaknesses or some weird little parts that I think as we go all along may be influencing the results. But the results were seen in college students, and so we got to ask, can this be extended to older adults? And it's not clear to me the ages from the way the study is described of the participants. So it says college students, but when I went to university, I was young, but there were also students of wide age levels. And so there's not any indication that I can see in this test that this will be effective as a longer term and longer duration meditation for all age groups, but it is encouraging that immediate benefits to practicing short-term meditation were observed. They were demonstrated as this test was structured. So this means that probably, depending on your age and how you consistently perform the meditation, this means that you don't have to wait a few months before you can start benefiting from your practice. Within a week of consistent meditation, you probably can start to experience improved concentration. But the question remains, will it really improve your memory? So if the meditation to concentration to memory link seems shaky to you, well, don't abandon meditation just yet. The link is actually a little bit more direct. Meditation has also been demonstrated, shown to improve memory. So there was a randomized controlled test that studied the effects of meditation on the working memory capacity in adolescents. So again, we have the age issue here. But around 200 teenagers were recruited and assigned to either a mindfulness meditation practice, yoga, or they were waitlisted as a control group, as in the other study we just talked about. And these groups meditated or practiced yoga once a day for 15 to 30 minutes. And these sessions were accompanied by 2 formal teaching sessions twice a week. By the end of the study, teenagers that participated in the meditation group had significantly better outcomes than their yoga counterparts, particularly in terms of their working memory capacity. But meditation doesn't just improve memory for youngsters. So there's another study that complements this one, and it looked at the effects of mindfulness training in adult-age college students who were studying for the GRE tests. And I'm not entirely sure what GRE is. I believe that it has something to do with an ersatz high school degree or something like that. But sure enough, the meditating participants experienced less mind wandering and increased working memory capacity. This result was achieved with only 2 weeks of meditating 10 minutes a day. And I have always kept my meditations relatively short because I don't see any increased benefit myself from meditating 10 minutes a day or 45 minutes a day. I actually think I get better from 10 minutes than I do 45. It's more like a quality over quantity thing. So By now, I hope you're getting excited about meditation's potential to supercharge your cognition. So calm your mind for now, even though you're pretty excited, and let's go through this a little bit more deeper, step by step, so you know how to get started on your meditation practice. There are quite a few ways to meditate, and there are probably as many ways to do it as there are Buddhist monks. Maybe there are 3 ways to do it, I don't know, but it's one of those things where we often say there are as many ways to do X as there are people to do it. And there's an interesting article by a guy named P.D. Joule who talks about, is there one and only one correct interpretation? And in that, he says, when the numbers are big enough, things usually boil down to 2 or 3, maybe 4 types of things. So there's relatedness between types that doesn't go too far. And I'm not big into any kind of Bible stuff, but there is something in there that is very interesting and compelling, which is the idea that there's nothing new under the sun. And so, yeah, it's fun to say, there are as many ways to meditate as there are Buddhist monks to do the meditation, but is that really so? I don't know. That's something that you need to think about. It may not even be desirable that there are that many ways, that many uniquenesses, but by the same token, we are all unique, and we are all who we are by virtue of not being anyone else. So the meditation that we undertake is the meditation that we as individuals are undertaking, and that can only be the meditation that we are undertaking, because it's not the meditation undertaken by anyone else. So maybe it is valid to say that there are as many ways to meditate as there are Buddhist monks, or there are as many people meditating as there are people meditating, and each of those people are unique. So their meditations must also be unique. But that big, long puzzle solved, maybe, it all comes down to actually doing the meditation and seeing what works for you. And we're just going to strip away the religious practices or whatever philosophical practices that are associated with Buddhism and look at this from a secular angle, and a very simple one-size-fits-all solution may well be available. So try this. Just find a quiet spot, free from distraction, and set a timer for the amount of time you want to meditate. Start with 5 minutes and move up from there. But Tim Ferriss has the neat idea that you should actually set your timer for shorter than you think you can do. So if you think you can do 5 minutes, set the timer for 4. And then sit on a chair or on the floor or cross-legged on your bed. You can even lie down, whatever is more comfortable for you. Lying down has the danger of putting you to sleep, but whatever, just do something and close your eyes and focus on your breath. Focus on parts of your body that just seem to be most prevalent to you, and when thoughts enter your mind, just let them enter your mind and simply acknowledge them and return your attention to your breath. That's one way. The other way is just to do what Alan Watts talks about, which is sit just to sit. And I think that that's kind of the more effective way, and that's the one that I do. And I just sit there on the floor and I wait for something to happen, because it will happen. Meditation and enlightenment will find you if you sit just to sit. So it's not about paying attention to my breath. It's not about doing body scans. It's not about what I just was suggesting, although those are great ways to start, and I've practiced them as well. It's just sitting and waiting. Sitting just to sit, as he puts it. And then what ultimately ends up happening, not every time, but I'd say 80 to 90% of the time, is I suddenly have this realization that I've been sitting on the floor completely lost in thought, and I'm not even there. And so really that to me is the most profound thing that has ever happened to me, are these moments of just, wow, I'm here in the world, and I'm not even here in the world. Or for the last however long, I've been lost in fantasy. And you can do this with your eyes open, and suddenly you'll realize that you're staring at the wall or at the couch or at the coffee table, and it'll just blow your mind. That will be a moment of absolute stunning clarity. And it happens to me often when I'm walking as well. I'll just be, whoa, I'm totally lost in thought, and yet here I am in the world. And that's a beautiful thing. And the more that you meditate, in whatever way that you meditate, it seems, and it's certainly my experience, that these moments of awareness and clarity where you're not lost in thought seem to get longer and longer. But one shouldn't get frustrated when the distractions come. You're just learning to extend the length of concentration that you can bring to your life, and knowing that what's going to happen is that the concentration will be broken one way or the other, but you just want to extend it for as long as you can, for as long as it's useful to you, rather. And so going back to this thing of sitting and so forth, if meditating in silence is too difficult, try some guided meditations. I used to do them quite a bit. I've even made my own guided meditations, and it's really powerful. You get used to hearing your own voice if you record it. It's really weird for a while, but there was a 1.5 year period where I listened to my own voice guiding me through meditation, and I still have that file. I should go through it, and it had positive affirmations in it as well, and I think that if you do it, you'll find that it is a super powerful thing to hear your own voice feeding your mind positive affirmations. And how that works is to put them in the present tense and just hear yourself saying them and maybe repeat them with yourself. Anyway, there's all kinds of apps that you can get. There's one called Headspace and one called Breathe. There's one called Stillness, and there's just so many things that you can plunk around with. And there are also some things out there that are making scientific claims that probably don't bear out. But the thing is to try and find music that isn't breaking your concentration, or soundscapes that isn't breaking your concentration with singing or changes in rhythmical patterns. So I was getting a massage the other day, and you get lost in it, and there's just this constant, steady rhythmical pattern. And one thing that I noticed when I was thinking about it is that from song to song, the rhythm stays the same. It's not 3/4 and then 4/4. It's just a particular rhythm that continues song after song after song. So try and go for something like that if you're finding it difficult to sit in silence. Now, I think that you should try and do this at least 4 times a week to get the most out of this, and to do it consistently at least a couple times a week. But go for 4 times a week, 15 minutes each time, or 5 minutes each time. Just set your timer for a little bit less than what you think you can do. And I really like to follow that Tim Ferriss method, but what I also do is I then try to sit again. So when my body wants to stand up and move, then I'll just sort of impulsively stand up, and then I'll catch myself, and then I'll sit a little bit longer. And that is very super powerful, because it's often in that second session that the explosion of concentration comes. And all I can do usually when I come into awareness and realize that I've been sitting there lost in thought is just laugh and laugh and laugh. And I've heard it called one time the Buddha smile, when you just explode with joy. And you got to experience it. It's really quite something. I almost have to start laughing just to think about how good it feels to laugh when you realize how bizarre and weird and strange it is to be so lost in thought. Okay, enough yapping from me. It's time for action. Improve your concentration. It is something that you can work on, and I believe very strongly, and evidence supports that this is a way to do it. It's a step towards improving your memory as well, because as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode of the Magnetic Memory Method podcast, is that you can remember more when your attention is greater, when your concentration is more profound. And meditation has been shown, demonstrated, and I believe it will bear out with your own personal experiences, that meditation is a powerful tool for improving your concentration, for bettering your cognition, for creating a wholeness to what you're able to do when you're studying something or just listening to a conversation and so on. And that automatically will lead to better memory, because you can't remember what you haven't paid attention to in the first place. You don't even have a chance. I was going to say sure as hell, but I guess this is an adult, or this is a PG-13. I don't know I don't remember what the ratings are anymore. I haven't looked at them since I stopped studying, stopped being a film professor. But PG, no G, that's what it is. No parental guidance. But anyway, the point being is that you cannot use memory techniques for information that has not penetrated your concentration and been part of your awareness, right? So for some, daily meditation might seem like an impractical use of time, because it's way more practical to be endlessly distracted and stressed out by notifications and what's going on with the new cat video on YouTube, or Facebook, some guy is dressed like a Star Wars Jedi, gotta watch that. That's way more practical than sitting for 15 minutes in silence. But think about it. Think about this. Think of all the time you spend lost in thought, unfocused and scatterbrained. It's okay. It's the way the world works sometimes, but it doesn't have to be you. It doesn't have to be you at all. And so if you want to be a Jedi, then this is probably the way. It's sitting with your mind in mind, and it will become very clear to you with some regular practice just how much meditation yields very impressive dividends for a relatively small investment of your time. Results are not instantaneous, but you can be sure that they do have scientific studies behind them that demonstrate the validity of the claims. And again, I think your own experimentation will bear it out. You'll experience it for yourself as well. Just be consistent about it, and don't worry when your mind wanders. You actually want your mind to wander, believe it or not, because that's when you're going to have these realizations that your mind has been wandering, and that's where enlightenment is when you come back to the present moment. So carve out 10 minutes a day for your first meditation session. Set the timer for 8 minutes if you think that you can do 10 minutes or whatever, right? Your mind is going to thank you. Your concentration abilities will gain an advantage, I'm sure, and that means that you will by default have an advantage with your memory. So I hope this helps. I hope that you take action on it. Don't save this as data for later, because none of this is worth anything until that you apply it. You can just passively listen to this and say, oh, great idea, yeah, or you can do it, and when you do it, that's when the magic happens. So until next time, this has been Antony Metivier. You've been listening to the Magnetic Memory Method podcast. Go to iTunes, leave a review if that's your thing. I'm always bad at asking for reviews and stuff, but other people don't seem to have a problem with it, so maybe I should develop in that area. But the reality is it actually helps this show continue going on, because it keeps it reviews and likes on Facebook and all that stuff. The search engines and Google and all the metrics, they make you more visible the more that they see people interacting with your content. So if you care about your own memory and you like these messages and want them to continue growing and spreading and helping more and more people, then yeah, reviews on iTunes really, really help with that. The likes on Facebook and the likes on YouTube and sharing and all that stuff really, really helps that. And as I said, we are in this really interesting moment where technology is growing and growing, and it's so super positive and amazing, but we do have more and more distractions. So we want our concentration to build, and we want all kinds of benefits for our memory precisely at this moment that it's under attack from distractions. So if you want to spread the good news about memory techniques, then I'd be honored if you would spread it through your support of the Magnetic Memory Method podcast, and come on over to the site, search around. There's all kinds of really great stuff, lots of episodes. There's over 100 now, and so if you like audiobooks, you can compile your own from the episodes. Don't cost a dime, and again, your support is very much appreciated. And you can leave little comments. Sometimes people leave little comments on the bottom of the posts. You can read most of these podcast episodes. You can read the transcripts of a lot of the interviews that I've done, and it's all just there. And click share, like, whatever, all those things that the hip kids do when they like stuff. All right, again, enough yapping. Enjoy your time meditating.